All right. Welcome to the latest edition of Ragic Office Hour. And let's get started by doing a recap on our latest features. Okay, the latest feature that we're introducing this week will be the data archival feature. So this is also something pretty new for Ragic. And you can find this feature under the hamburger menu under backup and restore. All right. So at the bottom, there's a automatic archiving. So if you go into the backup and restore and you have never done automatic archiving before, you're going to see something like this, like set up automatic archiving. So we click on set up automatic archiving and we will see this menu. And the point of doing automatic archive is so that for some of the sheets, the sheet will work quite a bit slower in certain functions when it has lots and lots of records. Let's say like 100,000 records. So if a sheet has, I think for rule of thumb, if a sheet has more than 100,000 records, and you can probably start thinking about doing archives, or even like 50,000, you can start thinking about maybe we should start doing some archives for older data. Because if you have a lot of data, in most of the time when you do queries, it's not going to have a large effect. But every time if you do certain actions, like when you're doing a filter that is a non-exact filter, by non-exact filters, I mean like when you're doing a filter here, you filter by text and you don't have exact match checked, so that whenever a match is non-exact, it's gonna have to scan through every single record of the sheet. So it's gonna be significantly slower on larger sheets. So this is when data archives comes into play. And if you archive your sheet periodically, like when you set up here, it's gonna limit the number of sheets on limit the number of records on that sheet, so that the sheet will work faster if you're working with it regularly, and it will work a lot better when you do any type of non-exact match filters. And other than non-exact match filters, a lot of reports will work faster with the data being archived, because there's not that much records. And if you do these kind of archives, because for most of the reports, it will need to scan through every single record on that sheet to do data analysis and for the purpose of that report. So having data archive can help keep your database size in control and make quite a few types of actions that you want to perform on the sheet a lot faster. All right, and so setting up sheet archive is pretty straightforward. So first of all, you just choose the sheet that you would like to archive, set up the archive for, and and Ragic will determine if a record could be archived by the one of the date field. And by default, it will be the system create date. So it will be the date the record is created. And you can choose other date fields on that sheet too. And it's gonna be executed on a monthly basis. So for example, for the first of every month, it's gonna archive the entries, like you can set up to older than a year. So we only want to keep records that's within this year. And 1 year, or maybe like 18 months, so 1 year and 6 months. So, and if you save it, and it's gonna set up an archive to automatically archive records older than a certain date on a certain date of every month. So this is something really nice to have, especially you have larger database and larger sheets, and if you find your sheet working a little bit slower than you wish, and you could just try to set up some data archive to archive the older data. And and underneath the hood, how data archiving works is pretty much the same as deleting the data into the recycle bin. So whenever you need the data again, you could still go into the archiving configuration and retrieve it from the data archive. So it's a lot like retrieving data from the recycle bin. So you could still retrieve the data anytime you want, but only that it's not gonna be included in your reports, and it's not gonna be included in your data filters immediately when you search records on that sheet. Okay, so that's it for the recap of this week, and let's go back into the questions. Okay, first of all, first one, act as other user. Hi, is it possible to act as other user in sandbox instance? Sandbox instance, okay. This act as user role is needed sometime to fix the issue faced by other user. Yeah, but it's not possible to do that, because that will be certain security issues if you can simply, if a sysadmin can simply act as another user without knowing his password. So as a workaround, you will probably need to reset the user's password with his permission, and reset his password and try to log in with his password. So yeah, and just so you know, if a user is in multiple Ragic accounts, you won't be able to reset his password, because if you reset his password and you log in as that user, you might be able to access his other accounts. So if a user is only in the account that you're the system admin for, then you can reset his password. But if the user is in multiple Ragic accounts, then you will have to ask the user to use the forget password, or to just go into his account and reset his password into something that he can share with you. So just another something that you should know about sharing accounts for debugging purposes. Okay, so currently, well, it's not possible to act as other user in instances, even if test instance, because of security considerations. To test as a user, you will need to reset this password as permission, or as a user to change his All right. Yeah, we do understand that you need to test as that user sometime to debug some, like especially access right setting issues. But just as with our Ragic support, if we really need to test as that user as a last resort, and he will need to ask the user to reset the password so we could test as that user. So there's no way to act as other users for security reasons, and because if you can act as another user, then and it's gonna lead to a lot of issues, like, oh, maybe maybe I didn't log in and do this and that. So there will be some responsibilities and even legal issues with that. Okay, next question. Job schedule reports. Is it possible to set different runtime for various reports? Is it possible to set different runtime for various reports? It would be highly beneficial to have the flexibility to schedule reports at different times. For instance, one could run at 10 o'clock to capture all records for today, while another report could be run at 5 o'clock, pulling records from yesterday. Okay, I think you're referring to schedule reports. Okay, schedule a new report. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't think you can schedule multiple reports for one day, because the 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 fine the most frequent configuration is every day. But we don't really have a way to set up schedule reports for multiple times in a day. But yeah, maybe in some cases you would need to do that, but yeah, I do. Okay, the reason we don't have multiple, you can run it multiple times a day is that there's gonna be some performance issues if you can schedule it to run multiple times a day. It may take a lot of system resource, but since you asked, I can provide you with kind of a workaround for this. So you can make multiple versions of. Oh, but that would be on different days. That would be on different times. But you could still go change the execution time here. Okay, you could just schedule the report. I'll delete this later. So I could schedule a report here. So I can go to the. So you will have one date. You could schedule it like 2 o'clock. And you can schedule another on a different multiple version here. So you could schedule a report here and create a new schedule report. Oh, okay. So we also catch that you cannot. Oh, but you can. So, wow, okay. Okay, so you could schedule a new schedule report on different multiple versions like this. And now I create another multiple versions. But it's the same execution time. Okay, so what I was thinking is that you could schedule different schedule reports on multiple versions. So you can have one version for 2 o'clock and the other version for like 10 o'clock. But no, when we designed this feature, I guess they have taken this into consideration so that you're not using this as a loophole. Because I was just thinking, hey, maybe I could do this to schedule multiple runs of the same sheet at different times, but I guess this has been taken into consideration. Yeah, so currently no, and that perhaps you could give us a little bit more information on why this would be necessary, and maybe we'll look at the use case and see if it's like very general and needed by a lot of users, and maybe we could make some appropriate changes. But right now, I guess it's not possible. supported. All right. Thank you for your question. Next question. Group tabs. Have trouble adding sheets to group tabs. Can you give a demo on how this works? Sure. Okay, by the tab groups, and we're referring to for different sheets. Huh. Schedule reports run, all schedule reports run at the same time. Okay, I was under the impression that because that was for the multiple versions, so it's not? Okay. Okay, because of the way the schedule reports are designed here, I guess it's possible that all schedule reports are run on the same time. Okay. All right. I will talk to our developers and see if that could be changed. Also talk to our developers and see if each individual sheets can have their execution time. Okay, thank you for the update. Oops. Okay, so for tab groups, it's basically we're trying to group multiple tabs into different group tab menus. So if I go into here, and you will see these tabs, and you may have a lot of tabs. So it will be really nice to group them into tab groups. So when you go into other tab menus, and you will be able to have more tabs here. So to do this, you can first of all go in here and create a new tab menu set. So, and this is currently the default tab menu, and like we have this extra tab menu here. And for example, if we want to move some of them to the extra tab menu that we created here, and let's delete this one first because this is empty. So let's delete this first. Okay, so now we only have the default tab menu, and now we can create a new tab menu for demo purpose, like unused unused tabs here. Okay, and here we're at unused tabs, and these are all the tabs that we see at the top. And we can choose that if we're not really using, for example, accounting, the integrate accounting and maybe purchasing, we could just move them here. And we save it, and these two tabs will be saved to the unused tab menu here. And you're referring to and how do you move sheets between them. So it's a little bit more tricky. So if you want to move the sheets, you will need to go to the Sheets Manager. So when you're creating a new tab menu, or when you're going into the tab manager, you're going to the same thing. This is the tab manager for you to create different tab menus and move tab menus around the moving tabs around tab menus. Okay, so but if you want to manage the sheets under the tabs, you'll need to go into the Sheet Manager. So when you go into the sheet manager, you will be able to move the sheets between different tab menus. So you could like move them to a different tab, and by using the left and right button here. Or you could rearrange them to move them up and down like this. So, and if you need to move a sheet into a tab on a different tab menu, then you will need to, because this only shows the tab menus in the tabs under the same tab menu. So you will need to move the tab into the same tab menu first, and move the sheet into that tab menu, and then move that tab into the other tab menu. So it's usually easier to first organize the sheets first, and then move the tabs into different tab menus. Okay. So basically, you'll need to use a combination of the sheet manager and the tab manager to move the sheets around. As the recording. You will need to use the tab manager and sheet manager to move sheets around different tabs. Okay, so I guess I'm not really answering your question. You're talking about group tabs under the account setup. Oh, account setup. No, you can't move sheets under the account setup. So yeah, account setup. You mean these? Yeah, you can't move those. Those are just system sheets always under the system tab menu. Or are you talking about like some templates? Because some of those, for the templates, they're not really movable. Oops. Okay, so you will need to use the tab manager and sheet manager to move the sheets around the different tabs. But note that you will need to move the sheets, move the tabs to the same tab menu before you can move the sheets into a different tab. For Ragic account setup sheets, they are not movable. Okay. All right, next question. What kind of Ragic training source must someone focus on if he is interested in scheduled tasks and task execution in general? Okay. Well, Jeff, good to know and see that you're all well and keep going. Thank you. As you have understood, my question is related to the learning aspect and not to a practical issue. So the question is, I want to learn more about how to design within Ragic procedures that require tasks to be executed like A, approval of order received. Okay. Invoicing of an order received. Approval from manager of annual leave requested. Approval of expense requisition form submitted for payment, etc. Such examples of any kind. Okay. For the samples that you provided, I can provide you with some documentations on what I think will be relevant to these features. So I'm gonna copy paste here first. Okay, regarding the feature, the things you would like to do in your accounts. Okay. Approval of order received. Okay, mostly for approval, you could just take a look at our, is it here? No. You could just go to approval flow configuration. We have a pretty detailed document on approval. So you just go into the design mode and click on this, and you will be able to configure approval like this. And there's a pretty detailed explanation on how to configure these kind of approval. Okay. For approval, please see this documentation. Okay, and next one is invoicing of an order received. Okay, this is more about converting records. So I will assume that the invoice and the sales order are two different independent sheets. Of course, there could be cases that the invoice and the order is the multiple version of a sheet. That's still also possible. So there are basically two ways to do that. So the first way would be like multiple versions, and you use a field to specify that this is a sales order and now it's invoiced. So you could use multiple versions to do that. But I would think in most cases that would be two different sheets, so that you will be using multiple versions to do. You will be using convert records to do that. But so you can use convert record to copy an order to create a new invoice with one click. So the convert record is here. So basically in convert record, you go into a menu like this, and you just choose that, oh, you want to put this field into this field on the other sheet. So you can have a lot of configuration like these. So you can map the fields between two different sheets. And when you click on the button, the action button, when the user clicks on the action button, it's gonna create a record from the record from on the left hand side, and create a record on the sheet of the right hand side, and copy all these field values into the new sheet. Okay, this is the convert record. And maybe you want to use multiple versions, so you don't even need to convert the records. So just for your reference, maybe multiple versions if a sales order is will always become an invoice and they have very similar fields. Okay, next one. Approval from manager of annual leave requested. Yeah, I think this is still approval. Yeah, I think it's still just setting up approval for the annual leave. So it should be pretty straightforward. And in approval, we also have ways for you to specify certain rules, like which, if the annual leave is like more than 7 days, it goes to his supervisor, or it needs to go to the HR department. So you could set up rules like that to determine which steps are needed in the approval process according to the data on the record. So you can still check out our approval documentation on how to set this up. And approval of expense requisition form submitted for payment. Yeah, this is still approval. I think like for in expense requisition, approval rules are still very useful. So just for your information, you could check out our approval rules. So rules for approvals. So now if you have expense if you have expense over like $100,000, it needs to go through a certain process, and then you can create a certain approval rules so that it goes an extra step during the approval process, like, or multiple extra steps. Approval rules in our approval documentation for details on designing different processes for a sheet. All right. And do we have any courses on that? Let's go to Learning Ragic. Yeah, configuring approval flows. Yeah, we also have a course on this. Also, please check out our course. Course on approval. All right, I hope this is helpful for you. Okay, and that's it for the questions for today. And thank you for joining in. If you have any other questions, feel free to use the office hours question sheet to ask your questions, and I will be answering your questions in 2 weeks. All right, thank you and take care. Bye.